It's 6 a.m. The sky is still black. A bedroom door opens. The light flips on. A teenager pulls the blanket over their head. From the hallway, it looks like defiance. But inside that brain, it feels like being dragged out of anesthesia. Because biologically, waking most teenagers at 6 a.m. is the equivalent of waking an adult at 4 a.m. And at 4 a.m., you are not your best self. You are foggy, irritable, slower, less patient. Now imagine building your future from that state, 5 days a week for 4 years. We treat sleep like it's negotiable, like homework matters more, like sports matter more, like discipline matters more. But during adolescence, sleep is not rest, it is brain construction. The teenage brain is undergoing one of the most dramatic rewiring phases of the human lifespan. Neural pathways are strengthened, others are pruned away. The brain is deciding, what kind of adult will this person become? And that decision happens largely during sleep. During deep sleep, learning solidifies. During REM sleep, emotions are processed. Stress is recalibrated, social experiences are integrated. Cut sleep short, and you interrupt development mid-process. Not once, but thousands of times across the most formative years of life. Here's what makes this harder. Around puberty, the biological clock shifts. Melatonin release moves later. Teenagers don't naturally feel sleepy until 11 p.m. or even midnight. That's not rebellion, that's biology. Yet in many communities across the United States, middle and high schools begin at 7:30 a.m. or earlier, which means wake-up calls at 5:30 or 6. Sleep scientists recommend 8 to 10 hours per night for adolescents. Only about 1 in 10 consistently gets that amount. We are not shaving off minutes, we are removing hours, night after night. Now let's talk about what that does. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make teens tired, it changes how their brains regulate emotion. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for impulse control and decision-making, depends on sleep to function properly. When sleep is shortened, that system weakens. At the same time, the emotional centers of the brain become more reactive, which means smaller stressors feel larger. Minor rejection feels devastating. Impulses feel harder to resist. And then we say, teenagers are so dramatic. But what if they're just exhausted? Here is a moment we rarely pause to consider. Imagine a 16-year-old walking into school after 5 or 6 hours of sleep. First period, a math test. Second period, a social conflict. Lunch, scrolling through curated images of other people's lives. Afternoon, practice, homework, college pressure. All processed by a brain running on a biological deficit. Now imagine we did that to adults in the workplace, forced them to operate daily on chronic sleep restriction. Would we call them lazy, or would we call it unsafe? The consequences go far beyond grades. Large studies of U.S. high school students show a powerful association between short sleep duration and increased rates of persistent sadness, hopelessness, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts. Sleep loss does not create depression, but it removes the brain's shock absorber. Without adequate sleep, stress hits harder, failure feels heavier, emotional pain lasts longer, and adolescence is already the most vulnerable window for mental health struggles. Then there's driving.
5 hours of sleep can impair reaction time to levels comparable to driving above the legal alcohol limit. Every morning, millions of sleep-deprived teenagers get behind the wheel before sunrise. Communities that delayed school start times have documented dramatic drops in teen car crashes. In one district, nearly a 70% reduction. Nothing about teenagers changed, only their sleep did. Academic performance improves too. Attendance rises, dropout rates fall, test scores increase, and families report fewer morning battles. Because what looked like attitude was circadian misalignment. What looked like irresponsibility was neurological fatigue. So why don't we change it everywhere? Because it's complicated. Bus schedules, sports, budgets, tradition. But complexity does not erase biology. We would never ignore neuroscience when designing a medical treatment, yet we routinely ignore it when designing school systems. Here is the truth. When we chronically restrict teenage sleep, we are not just making mornings harder, we are asking developing brains to regulate emotion without restoration, to learn without consolidation, to make safe decisions without full capacity. And then we criticize them for not performing like adults. The teenage brain is not broken, it is sleep deprived. Sleep is not a reward, it is infrastructure, it is cognitive stability, it is emotional protection. And when we take it away, we are quietly shaping the architecture of an entire generation. The question is no longer whether teenagers need more discipline. The question is whether we are willing to align our systems with science. Because when teenagers sleep enough, attention sharpens, mood stabilizes, judgment strengthens, potential expands. And what we see is not laziness, it is a brain finally given what it needs to grow.